park for a little while this afternoon. It was gorgeous.
Yeah. How crowded was it?
No, weekdays it was pretty good. It's just weekends that it gets very crowded.
Yeah. What's amazing, as soon as the temperature is above 50, the streets get packed. Okay, well, it's 4:02. Why don't we start so that we don't take up a lot of time. I thought a working group would be really helpful because there's a lot to do to get these kinds of arts initiatives off the ground. And it seems to make sense to divide it up into, I guess, buckets of work over a shorter period of time rather than waiting for the monthly meeting where there may be other issues. So right now, based on the resolution from our first art committee meeting, in which we agreed that CBH should support art on the Ave and try and bring something like that to the community, that seems like something that we should focus on right now. I had invited Brenda Levin to this meeting, who deals a lot with developers and real estate, and thought that she might be able to clue us into potentially receptive landlords, but she was not able to attend. I also invited someone else who's a real estate broker for commercial landlords, but I think my emails go into his junk file. That's what happened the first time. So I think we should think about landlords, about stores, about blocks and streets for the art in the window displays, and about how to reach out to artists and which artists we want to target. And I know that Art on the Ave was successful with its themes. Its initiative on Columbus Avenue was on healing, and the one downtown in the Village that is getting ready to open, I think, is on awakenings, if I have that correct. So we can also talk about that. So there are a lot of moving pieces to this. And again, that's why I thought it would be helpful to try and have these meetings more frequently where we could make progress rather than waiting. So shall we talk about, and I know I see someone, Chris Harrington and Betty Cordova, if I'm glad to see you and I'm glad that you're here, if I'm not putting you on the spot, if you would just introduce yourselves and that'd be great. And I'm Alita Camp. I was chair of Community Board 8, and I'm now chairing this arts committee and co-chair of the small business committee, because artists are small business and these kinds of initiatives could help small businesses. And our community, as well as other communities around the city, really need some more help in thriving. And if Peggy and Gail would also like to introduce yourselves, you're welcome to. And the gentleman with the headphones on is Will Brightbill, our district manager, who is responsible, as you may know, for all of the technological capacity, and they're significant at CB8. Excuse me.
So I'll just say hi, I'm Peggy Price. I co-chair the Women and Families Committee with Gail Barron, and been a member of Community Board 8 since 2002.
Mhm.
So I'm sort of a dinosaur. But anyway, nice to meet you all.
And I'm Gail Barron, co-chair of the Women and Families Committee of Community Board 8 with Peggy. And I was Alita's first vice chair during the 3 years that she served as chair of CB8. So welcome, everyone. I think this is really an important initiative, and anything that we can do to get it moving forward would be really great.
Thank you. Betty or Chris?
Hi, everyone. I'm Betty Cordova. I'm very interested in Community Board 8. I'm very passionate about the arts. I'm a board member and also the assistant treasurer of Plymouth Tower, which is on 93rd Street and First Avenue. And I'm also a compliance advisor as well. Thank you for having me.
Well, welcome. I'm glad. And Chris, if that's not putting you too much on the spot.
Sure thing. My name is Chris Harrington, and I was actually became unemployed during COVID, and public arts and things related to that have just always really piqued my interest. I'm on the email list for Community Board 8, being on the Upper East Side, so I thought I would pop in. I was at the last meeting, I think, and I was just really inspired by that Arts on the Avenue presentation, and I had a little time, so here I am. Thanks.
Great. Well, Again, I'm glad to have you. So Peggy and Gail are very good at organizational skills and have a lot of experience with small businesses. So what should we tackle first or think about? And we could do things simultaneously. I'm thinking we need to try and identify some landlords, but it doesn't have to be. And Art on the Ave had more than just empty storefronts. They also found a few occupied stores that were happy to have their art displays. So, so what do you think? How do you think we should proceed? And I'm an open book and an open mind on this. I have ideas, but I don't really, the execution of them, we need to all work together.
Well, I was at a meeting this morning of the East Midtown Partnership, and Rob Burns, who's the president, which is one of our business improvement districts in the neighborhood. And Rob is working now with the same group that we introduced him to kind of look at art on the avenue and maybe weave it in some way to the BID's 20th anniversary. And one thing there, where you have more of the Midtown buildings, there may not be as many storefronts. You know, it really depends on what we're looking for. The Upper West Side on Columbus Avenue has lots of small businesses, the open tiny store with the storefront. In Midtown, we have more of the larger buildings. So what Rob and his team are thinking about is not necessarily going into the storefronts, although if there's space that's open and available, like Billy Rudin of Rudin Management owns quite a few buildings in their area, and I think he's really sold on this program, so he might well, without a tenant, be willing to have the art. But one thing that the BID did have is they had a program where in several of the lobbies within their district, they had these beautiful handmade quilts. So the whole question is, within our district, what are we looking for as far as the venue? Do we want to find small stores, particularly further east, that might be more open and willing to having local artists and then start to reach out? But I think having some type of a theme, deciding how we want to thematically approach it, and then really what types of storefronts or lobbies we want to use. And I still think that the better way of finding landlords is still through the real estate market. So it's a shame that the folks that you reached out to aren't able to come. But I do think that if we can just get a handful of landlords that might be willing to participate, then we're also off and running. And maybe there'll be landlords who won't participate with the art, but they might be able to make a contribution. And then we just have to figure out, since we can't raise money as a community board, what our conduit would be. So whether it could be Carnegie Hill Neighbors or the 86th Street Association or the 72nd Street Association, I'm sure that we could find a fundraising conduit for us as long as somebody wanted to give us money rather than space.
Yeah, and that would make sense. I know the Rudins are a huge landlord family, so
Sure.
it may be possible that they have other properties in addition to the high-rise commercial buildings in Midtown. There's also the Durst organization. I know Peggy and I had talked about this, but I knew of Sharma before this. There's a child in that family who is also very interested in bringing art to communities and has made available, I think, or used other spaces. That building, Gail, on 73rd and Lexington that we looked at in the Landmarks Committee, that was a former restaurant that had been used for a few months by Sharma, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and they had art displays in there, but it was set up as a gallery, as a very, very temporary gallery. So then let's talk about maybe we could look at it simultaneously, areas and landlords, and see if there's a target. If we're up in Carnegie Hill, I'm not sure of the boundaries, 96th Street, I guess, to the north, and I don't know how far south. Does it go down to 86th Street?
It does.
Okay, so from 86 to 96, and it goes from the park, how far east does it go?
Probably to Lex.
Yeah, there are probably some empty storefronts on Lexington. I know there's quite a lot. I'm on 84th Street and I walk south on Lexington a lot. I know that there are quite a lot on certain blocks in the 70s. Almost the entire block is vacant. So those are storefronts. I know that east, there are also a lot of vacancies. I think we would want streets with a lot of foot traffic. And one of the problems, and potentially why it's a big problem for Third Avenue, is that the foot traffic that landed on Third to get to the Lexington Avenue subway is now not on Third anymore because people taking the trains are taking the Q. And if they're south of 86th Street. So Third Avenue, because I talked to store owners whose businesses closed because they were missing the foot traffic that they had previously had. So I'm not, if our aim is to get people in passing, and that's what Barbara Anderson from Art on the Ave had talked about, that people would walk by, and the first time, and the second time they'd stop and they'd linger at some pieces of art, and then the third time they would stop and click on the QR code and listen to what the artist had to say about the painting or the piece of art, so that they became familiar with it and intrigued with it. So we want to make sure that there is ample foot traffic to bring that. So I'm wondering if Lexington or Second maybe make more sense. And I don't know. So what does everyone think? At our art meeting, I think Billy was talking a lot about Third Avenue.
Can I say something here? I just want to make sure that this has to be art on the avenue per se. Is there any way that it could be something else, such as
Yes,
subway stations underground with
yes.
and I mean, it seems like we might have more luck with something other than, or I don't know why, for example, we couldn't persuade the MTA to allow us to use the 86th Street Q station or the 72nd Street. Those are beautiful new locations, and they are attracting art. They have art. They must be, and there's certainly tons of people go by there. It seems like a nice, safe indoor space. That the other thing is parks, but of course that would be an outdoor function, which could be for the summertime. Um, it just seems like stores must be something better than stores, that storefronts might get rented, or there might be, or the landlord might suddenly have a pop-up customer that wants to use the store. That is there some way we could think about something else that might be really fast and able to do, such as a subway station?
Yeah, fast would be good because then we'll have a success under our hats that we could use to sell and leverage or segue into something that's bigger and maybe more ambitious. I'm not sure how easy it is to convince the MTA that this makes sense. There is, and I don't know, Will, you're still there, right? Do you have any sense, since you work with the government agencies, of, oh, and I see we have Nicole Ferrara, who also joined us. Will, do you have any sense of the MTA and how willing they might be to share their station space with our art?
I think you could maybe convince them to do a 1 day, 1 afternoon sort of event. Nothing that's longer than that. Just they don't even let us put up flyers for our meeting events in their station areas. So like they're just very particular about everything.
And I think they have their own jury that selects the art.
Exactly.
For the subway stations, the same as they determine what music can be played underground. So I think they are a little tough.
Yeah, I imagine if you went to them with a 1 afternoon sort of thing, you could maybe convince them. But anything beyond that, they wouldn't want to take care of the stuff. They wouldn't want to be responsible for making sure nothing was stolen or broken. And they also wouldn't want the conflict of like the art that they already sanction to be diminished, as Gail pointed out.
And maybe we could hold that and think about it for a one afternoon performing arts thing. But if we're going to go to the effort of finding the artists and promoting this, it seems that one afternoon may not be enough. Is there anyone who would disagree with that?
I'm not sure that that's the case. It might be the case. I mean, we'd certainly, if we were interested in that at all, we would have to ask. But the fact is, at my subway station, the musicians there are there all the time. And they're not being harassed, they're not being thrown out. There doesn't seem to be any, insurance issues involved or whatever.
Are they part of the arts underground that the MTA has?
Oh,
Because the MTA has a,
I feel a lot of them just set up shop.
oh, okay. Because I know they have a specific program.
The other
Okay,
thing,
well, we could look into it and Will, you could facilitate some kind of conversation with the MTA. But let's think of alternatives too, in case that one doesn't work. There's a bank on the corner of 85th and Lexington that a few years ago when they opened there, it's a local metropolitan bank, something like that. And they said that they had art displays and art shows. I talked to them about something else that I was working on just myself privately. And they do art things. And they're across the street from a very large Bank of America with that's a huge national bank with very large windows. And it runs half the block between 85th and 86th Street. And there's nothing in the bank. There's very little there. So maybe if they were both interested and they were their catty corner, that might be something small and something discreet. But what else are people thinking?
well, the other thing I've been thinking is there any way we could partner with one of the many museums in our district that could facilitate something for us? Not necessarily in their museum, although possibly. But it seems to me they'd have the best tentacles, if you will, out there to know how to do something. And it could be in their interest, if we tell them we're trying to advance the cause of budding artists or community artists or something. But it seems like there's so many museums just in our district that one or more of them might be willing to, for example, twice, once as co-chair of the Parks Committee and the second time with Gail as co-chair of the Women's Committee, we put on programs at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And people said, well, how did you ever get that space? Well, we picked up the phone and we called. That's how we got the space. So, I mean, it's not an intimidating thing, and it could open up an awful lot of doors for us.
Does anyone have connections within any of the museums or is willing to just take a chance? I can with a museum that's not in the district, but is very big on New York City art and history and culture. So maybe that's something because of its ties to New York. Potentially, I'm not sure. Anyone else? Otherwise, I mean, I'm willing and happy and eager actually to do a lot of this legwork. It helps to have connections, but
I'll reach out to the Frick. They may want to be a little more involved, given some past issues with redevelopment, and also the fact that they're now in the Met space, the old Whitney Museum, and want people to be aware of what they're doing as good neighbors. So
yeah, they're not my biggest fan, I'm sure, but they might be willing to. Yeah. So I can talk to the Frick through, oh, I'm so bad at names, the woman who had come regularly to our CBA, Elizabeth Rose Daly.
Daily.
Yeah, she's the liaison. I'll talk to her. So if you have any, my email address, by the way, is camp, CAMP at CB8M. Don't forget the M. I do sometimes. It will get bounced back. CB8M.com. And you can get in touch with me if you have any ideas about that. So we'll pursue the museums. We'll pursue the MTA. I could talk to that bank again, and maybe if they do it, B of A might be willing to. And see, otherwise we can talk next time about targeting specific areas. Gail, you want to say something? I could see.
Well, I was wondering also if there might be certain restaurants
Yeah,
that we would want to partner with.
Maz Mezcal might be a possibility. That's what I was thinking too.
Mhm.
And that's 86th Street. So Elaine might, some of the administrators on the East 86th Street Association, the people running it, have really good relationships with the board. One's on the board and the other one worked with us on our small business
Well, I'm
programs
friendly
last
with the
spring.
owner, so,
Peggy, I think, has contacts.
Okay, did you say you are, Peggy?
yeah, I'm friendly with the owner.
Good. Okay, so then you take care of that one. And for anyone from the public, if you have any ideas or suggestions or contacts, that would be fantastic. I mean, the idea is to replicate, I guess, the concept of what Art on the Ave did successfully, which was bring local artists to the viewing pleasure of the public, of businesses, to help the businesses and to make street life more interesting to the residents. Of course, this was in the winter when things were slowing down, but it hasn't stopped. And it's encouraged all other communities to reach out to them. So that would be good. Let's think about names for this as well. Art on the Ave is taken, but I'm sure there's something good we could come up with. If you have ideas, you can email them, and you can email the board office too. And that will, correct me if I'm wrong, is info@cb8m.com, and we'll send that around. I hope to members of the committee. So and to public, and for people from the public, for Chris and Betty, and without embarrassing anyone, Nicole and Stephanie. And if you'd like to introduce yourselves to the group, you're just unmute yourself and say a few words. We'll put you on the list so things are targeted to you too. And we'll put you on the general community board 8 list if you're not already there. Nicole, you look like you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I'll just briefly introduce myself because this is my first meeting with you all, and I came a little late because I was at a work meeting that ran over. But I live on the Upper East Side. I'm a storyteller. I'm an artist, and I was just looking to get involved with the community board and had been thinking about exactly what you all are talking about, how to bring art to help revive the neighborhood and just bring art back to the neighborhood. So that's why I joined today, but I'm a little behind on what you've already talked about. So I'm kind of just nodding along. But just one last thought, if I could share really quickly, is that before the pandemic, I had been speaking with Kim Muscaritolo, who I know is big on reviving the small businesses in the community. And as a storyteller, I was thinking there might be a way to bring storytelling to local businesses, help basically tell the story of the neighborhood and of the businesses that have survived this long as a way of connecting the community to personal stories and to local businesses. So if that ever feels appropriate, I'm happy to talk all things storytelling, but I'll shut up now. Thank you. for having me.
One of the things, well, we've talked about two things. One is bringing visual arts, painting, sculpture, the like, to small businesses, or as we talked about tonight, to other venues for people to look at, appreciate, and potentially buy. And the other one that we were talking about is performing arts. The mayor has that cultural arts initiative, which actually doesn't apply at all to the community district 8, but we do have access to a street. I think it's been demapped. Is it 91st or 92nd between 2nd and 3rd, James Cagney Place, which is that full block. It has benches. It's the width of a street. So there's plenty of opportunity for performances and to use that for dance companies, musicians, storytellers hadn't occurred, but I think that's a great idea. And to be able to do it that way. And those are more either hour-long, couple hours, or afternoons with different performers. So that's certainly something, especially as the weather improves. And then I know that there's a Stephanie with iPhone. If you'd like to say anything, just unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you so much. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I could not make it home in time, so I'm dialed in. I'm outdoors, so sorry if there's a little bit of background noise. But my name is Stephanie. I just moved into the area a few weeks ago. This is my first meeting within the community board. I kind of just wanted to join a few of them to see what's going on in the neighborhood. Hopefully get a bit more involved as time goes on. I can't say that I bring any connections to the table at this time, but I hopefully, as I start to try out all of the restaurants in the area, I'll definitely keep these things in mind, and hopefully come up with some ideas in the near future as well. But thanks for including us, and looking forward to hopefully being more involved in the future.
Great. Well, welcome, and enthusiasm and interest is as important as connections. So we're happy to have all of you guys and to work on this, because I do think it's important to revitalize the whole area, not just the small businesses that are potentially impacted by having art in their windows or performance in their spaces. But we do have to break through what seems to be a fairly, if we're going the storefront and the landlord route, a fairly consistent set of obstacles thrown up by commercial landlords of just not wanting to do this. And then there were other issues such as insurance and liability that and cost to display things, but we could figure that out once we get some landlords. I could also talk to the Shasharma lady, woman, and see what potential availability there might be. And then when we reconvene, and I also thought that, did I say this earlier, that by having this working group, we could meet more frequently than the monthly, we're not even set up to meet monthly art committee meetings, and get a lot of work done behind the scenes and in between. So we could, I'm thinking, I don't know, and the people who want to come, it's not like a committee meeting. We don't really need, I think, and will correct me, a quorum, so you could come and go and just show up at this working group thing as it fits into your schedule. So over the next couple of weeks, we'll talk to the MTA, museums, anyone who has contacts or wants to, but we should just coordinate by email so we're not making duplicative efforts, which aside from wasting the time of the people calling, is also probably annoying to the institutions. What they did on Columbus Avenue, they hung artwork on from the fence around, I think it's PS 77. No, it's not 77, wherever it's on 77th Street, where they have that flea market on Sundays, catty corner from the Museum of Natural History. I think they hung artwork from the fences. We have certainly PS 6 has an extensive fence in front of a very nice garden on Madison Avenue. Maybe even if we don't have other Madison Avenue stores, maybe that's something we could do. Maybe we could use it for artwork from the kids from the school. I think just the idea of bringing in artwork and engaging members of the population. And one of my kids went to PS 6, and one of the great benefits of being in New York was that she had an after-school program at the Guggenheim Museum, which was really amazing. So the idea of introducing young kids to art, it's down the block from the Met, is maybe something that the school might be interested in. I have no idea. Especially now, I don't know if I guess they're open like other schools. So just ideas about who to talk to. And it's like throwing a lot of stuff at the wall, to use an expression that may not be the most palatable, no pun intended, but throwing stuff at the walls and seeing what sticks in terms of what potentially might work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was also thinking the colleges in our community might be a possibility. Hunter, Marymount, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's probably a good idea to start with the museums because they would have a natural connection, but these colleges would have art programs. And there might be some connection that would be, this is something to keep in mind because they have space, certainly.
They do have space, and actually our landmarks committee meetings were held at Marymount, and they have enough space to actually have art exhibitions. They've had art hanging on the walls in that exhibition space. They also have I think a strong performing arts program.
They do. That's what I was gonna say, yeah.
So that's, and they've reached out to the community board on at least once per year when I was chair, right, Will, and met with us and wanted to be more involved with the community. So that's good. Will, do you have any idea if they're operating now, if there are administrators there?
And Marymount is not open to the public right now.
Okay. So we could see what might happen by the time the fall rolls around. And
Hunter College has a lot of programs that are going on now, and I guess most of them are on Zoom. However, if that were of interest, it would be a possibility to check with them.
that's a good idea too. I'd like to think the hospitals have large lobbies and might be venues for some, and there are so many of them on 70th Street, right down the block from Sotheby's, with large lobbies and spacious and open to public view lobbies. And we're always urging them to be strong members of the community. So there are a lot of ideas and about things to do that's not just placing art in the storefronts. So let's see about working on any of these possibilities, and then we could have another meeting in a few weeks, couple weeks, 2-3 weeks, and see if we've made any progress. Does this time work for people at 4 on Tuesdays? Gail and Peggy? Well, you'll let me know by email.
Right.
We'll just set a time. I said we were talking about 5 o'clock, but there's a program this evening for those of you interested in economic gentrification's impacts on communities, on the impact on small businesses that I've been very involved in. So I need to be able to finish in time to get nervous for that one and do my plan, the work behind the scenes work for that. So that's why it's at 4 o'clock today. And tune in if you'd like. So 9 community boards in Manhattan have worked on that, and the link should be on the website. Okay, so I think we're set in terms of what to do over the next 2 or 3 weeks. And for anyone who has any contacts, feel free. Again, let's communicate by email, and let's let's see what inroads we could make. Even names of potential contacts would be good, and themes. Think about a name for this kind of initiative, and think about a theme. I was thinking not reawakening, that's too close to Art on the Ave, but oh well, I forgot. So it's the effect of COVID on my brain, but I'll rethink. And if we have ideas about a catchy, pithy name, that'll be good for next time too, so that we have something to go in with. Is there anything I'm missing?
Nope, I don't think so.
And anything anyone else would, thank you, Will, for posting about tonight. Anything that anyone else would like to add, and for posting everything else that you've posted. Thank you, Will. Anything from anyone else?
Just a question, is the last Tuesday of each month, or is it every Tuesday at 4?
No, not every Tuesday, and I'm not sure the last Tuesday either. I think more frequently than once a month would suit me, so that we could get more done. Yeah. Because there's a lot to do. So, and these are shorter and hopefully sweeter, and anyone could come and go and join. We don't have real members in this, I think, in the sense of a quorum. I'm sure will correct me on my procedural mistakes. So I'm thinking maybe every 3 weeks or 2 weeks, if that works for people. I don't have anything more regular than that. Anything else? Okay, well, I thank you all for your interest and for joining, and for Peggy and Gail in particular, because we're members of the board, and I know obviously what kind of commitment that makes. So thank you so much. I'm glad there's this level of interest, because I think we could do a lot of exciting things here. So think of theme and think of name, and let's get to work on trying to reach people, and I'll do that too. Okay, so I'll see you all again. Thank you everyone for participating and sharing. Thanks. Bye. Thank you, Will.